Curtis A reached out to me, said make a theme song for my show. Said alright, just give me all the details, man. And my homie says he don't know. Well, if you're gonna pay me big bucks, cause I might should have something to say. He said, you know what I bring, I'm the customizing king, nothing else matters anyway. So is he gonna have guests? I don't know. Is he gonna go live? I don't know. What time will it be? What will you see? I'm pretty much in the dark, but I can guarantee he'll be customizing action figures, getting paint all on his fingers. It's art by Akerman. It's art by Akerman. Tips and tricks and conversation, sharing his gift with every nation. It's art by Akerman. Art by Akerman. You best get ready, cause now it's time for Art by Akerman.
All right, folks, welcome back to another How'd They Do That? The song there at the beginning, amazing theme song by Jeremy DeWitt. Appreciate him. He has an album out right now. If you go to Spotify, Echoes Another Path, really great album. So check that out. My guest today is somebody that spends quite a bit of time with Jeremy on a little show that they call Podcasters of the Universe, which is where I first met this gentleman. And he's turned out to be pretty much in my opinion, the best paint matcher in the community. It is Lord Steven Bushotee. Steven, how you doing, sir?
Good, Curtis. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. So in this series, I've been having a bunch of folks on to talk about, whether it's a custom or a certain style of paint job that they do that they really excel at. And I knew right from the get-go that I wanted to get you on to talk about paint matching, because I feel like it's something that some people kind of skip over. They go and get some 3D printed parts, they start painting them really cool ways, but if you don't have something that it matches to, it makes it a little difficult. Now, there's some figures like the Armory Knights have made it a little bit easier in some instances, because you can paint like a human head and throw it on there. You don't have to worry about if it matches skin tone and things like that. So some of those make it easier, but there's a lot of, figures out there where if you don't paint match it, it's going to kind of look a little odd. So, let me pull up this slideshow here. So the one that I've got on here, which I think, man, you absolutely killed this. This is one of those Medusa head with the snakes. And then, did a great paint match to the body, but also just the way that her face came out, the snakes came out, just absolutely gorgeous. So, let's go ahead and just get started with this one. Tell us how this came together.
That's a hard head to paint. That's not a hard head to paint. It's a
timely.
Yeah, it takes there's a lot of detail with all those snakes and trying to get all the eyes painted and all the mouths, all the teeth. The head was just the natural thing, the normal thing I do. Honestly, I don't think that's a perfect paint match for me, but it's passable.
Okay. It looks pretty great to me. I know one thing just from watching you paint, we used to have some of these lives that we did on the Wolf Den. And you've got one that, I ended up taking from the Wolf Den and putting on the Wolf King Customs YouTube channel, where you're talking about matching like Caucasian flesh tones. And you mix a lot of colors. This isn't like something where you just go to the store and you're like, well, this looks close enough, right? Like there's a lot of mixing that goes on to come up with the right skin tone. So what goes into something like that?
It's basically, I was an art kid. I was always in art class in high school. I was familiar with the color wheel. I'm familiar with certain things on the artistic side that if somebody maybe didn't, this is their first thing they picked up is to try to paint figures and they weren't an art dork. I might have a little tiny bit of an edge on.
Yeah.
I know how to desaturate colors. I know complementary colors. I mean, that's super easy. I mean, I'm not talking about anything.
Well, I'm sure there's plenty of people watching that are like, desaturate colors, what is he talking about? So like, can
Well,
you just
basically, if
break
you
that down a
add
little
the
bit?
opposite color to on the color wheel, like if you have a color wheel in front of you,
Mhm.
and trying to think of an example because I don't have a color wheel in front of me. I always have to look one up on my phone. But like I think if a color is really, really saturated, like really, really green, let's say,
Mhm.
you look at a color wheel, you go across from it and you see the opposite of that, and you add that to it. You add a
Gotcha.
little tiny bit of that, and it'll make that less green or less red. It'll
Yeah,
mute it. It'll mute it.
I think on one of them that I was watching you do, because you were doing, I think you were starting. Well, you'd done a base first of I think like a shadow flesh from Pro Acryl, but then when you were putting the kind of top color on there, you started with a Kislev, but then you added a little bit of brown, you added a little bit of red, you added a little bit of yellow. And then at one point, I think it started to look a little bit too orange, and you added some blue to take the orange out of it. And I'm like, if I'm mixing skin tones at that time, I was like, I would never think to add blue. Like, why would you add blue to a skin tone? Like, that's not something you see in skin. But this whole desaturation that you're talking about is what you were doing. You were pulling some of the orange out of it, which at the time was totally foreign to me. So yeah, I think that is pretty interesting. Actually, I do happen to have a color wheel on here from another one that I was doing. So
Yeah, oh, there we go. Yeah, you
yeah.
use that all the time. If it's super like just too yellow, a tiny dab of violet will it'll make that more like the outer. If you look at the outer rim of the color wheel there, it'll
Mhm.
make it more like that and less like towards the center of the pie.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much when you're desaturating because you don't want to flip it too hard the other way. But yeah, I mean, you do a really good job, and then whether you think this is a great paint match or not, I think it's spectacular. I think the snakes is obviously the part that people focus on because there's a lot of them, there's a lot of detail and stuff. But I think the face paint on this one is absolutely gorgeous. I think you killed it, and it makes this character just, I don't know, just a lot cooler in my opinion.
It's
So
a hard one because I mean, technically, her face to me and things look different in photographs than they do in real life.
yeah.
Um, but like her face to me has got a little bit too much color in it. If I was going to go a straight match to that body,
Hmm.
but it works and it does make her face more beautiful. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a catch-22. It's like, how do do you want to make it look like it was painted by the factory and matches exactly or do you want to have enough of a match that you can use that on that body and
Hmm.
it works and the face has still got that more hand painted look to it with all the blush and the color and the vibrancy.
Well, and that's like we've got some people in the community that do really cool, realistic, face paints, face, portraits. I think they're calling them. But a lot of times, unless you're putting it on a fully armored figure, it's not going to match because that's not really the aesthetic that we get from the Four Horsemen. It's not super uber realistic. There is still a little bit of kind of fantasy and whimsy to it. So, um, yeah, I think this is a good mix here. And then, we've got a couple other females that you've done here.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, now obviously the one you're just matching to the neck peg, which if you have to, you could always paint the neck peg, but I think it's still a really good match. And then you got this one on the right. So any other thoughts on these two or how that worked?
It's the same thing. I mix I do everything the same way basically. So I mean, but it's different because like you said, I don't go to the store and try to find something that's close right out of the bottle. It all
Mm,
starts with Kislev for me. It doesn't have to start with Kislev. It's that's a Citadel color,
mm,
layer Kislev flesh. It all starts with that for me, and I just put red, yellow, brown, and blue on dabs of that around it, and I just start
going
mixing.
until you get to the right color.
Yeah, and then trying to account for the dry because when it dries, it's going to dry darker.
Hmm.
So, you try to account for that a little bit by putting maybe a little dab on the neck peg
Hmm.
of the figure and then hitting it with a blow dryer and
Yeah, I've
seeing how
done
that
that
turns out.
trick a lot for sure.
And then you can kind of tell where you're at when it's dry, which is
Yeah.
can be a pretty substantial difference from when it's wet.
Oh man, I've had some where I'm applying it going, man, this is perfect. And then it dries and I'm like, what the hell? It's completely different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So all right. And then here we've got a couple ogres and like man, these two both look great. Like it's spot on. Like I would think that the company basically told you, hey, this is the paint we use because it looks great.
Yeah, these two are. I'm proud of these guys. They did turn out really good, and I've found a real good knack for matching that ogre body. Same method, I just kind of know which way to go first.
Gotcha.
A lot of orange
Through practice and
Yep.
gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah,
But
it
it's the
seems like
same.
a lot of red, yellow, a dab of brown, and it usually gets you there from the ones that I've seen you do. So,
Yeah.
and then the tri-orc, the other thing I wanted to point out that like the eyes are amazing. Like this might be one of my favorites in terms of eyes, and with it being that trioc head, you've got an extra one to deal with. So trying to getting two eyes to match up is not always the easiest thing. Getting three eyes to match up is even harder. So I think you killed it on this one.
Thanks.
Let's see. I think we've got one more thing of some humans. Now this is, I'm wearing my God's Fire t-shirt today. And there's some God's Fire heads. So not only did you do a great job of painting these, but you helped bring these to life with our good friend Emil, right?
Yeah. These are some of our pieces from Wolf King, and that me and Emil have had a hand in creating. Yeah, the fallen head in Pauldron, which is on the left, that's matched to the barbarian body, the deluxe barbarians, the kind of orangey-ish look. And I do have that's the one that I do have straight out of the bottle close. I still mess with it a little bit.
Tau like light ochre, I think.
Yeah. Yep. So
now you still put like a red underneath of it though, right? Like a Shadow Flesh or a Bugman's Glow or something before you do that, or
I think I do. I did a Bugman's Glow under it, and then I do the Tau, whatever that is, ochre or whatever it is, over it. But I also mix in, while the paint is still wet, then I mix in darker tones to go under the eyes, under the nose, under the chin right here.
Yeah.
Bottom part of the cheeks. Well, he doesn't have that because he's got a helmet covering it, kind of. But
the shadow areas.
Yep, I hit the shadow areas.
I like about I really encourage anybody that wants to actually see Steven do this. There is a video over on the Wolf King channel, and I'll link it in the description here. But the way that you actually continue to like add colors and blend the colors while it's still wet is something that I don't see a lot of folks do. I see a lot of folks, they'll paint on one thing, hit it with the hair dryer or let it dry, and then paint on the next part. But like you're doing a lot of mixing, whether it's the highlights, the shadow areas, the lips, all that stuff while it's still wet.
Yeah, that's it's a way for me to kind of create a smooth transition between the shadows and the highlights. It's something I did on instinct early on, and because when I first started painting, I was doing what everybody does. You get some washes, you get some, you paint something, and then you add some washes that falls into the crevices and everything, and it looks good. And then at some point, I was like, it's not sniper crit. It always has kind of a dirty look to it, I think, when you do that. Yep. And which sometimes is appropriate, but often I wanted that smooth transition, almost airbrushed look, but trying to pull it off with a brush.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And then this the one on the right is the new believer head, the more expressive head, which I think is an amazing sculpt. Yeah, I mean this had to be cool once you guys got to the point where the series went long enough that now you can get a second run at these things. Had to be a lot of fun to go through.
I love that head. Emil just took it and pushed it to such a emotional level, and the only thing I can take credit for is one strand of hair, because when he was all done, I just said it just needs one more strand of hair in his face, and so I can take credit for that.
Nice. Well, I mean, you both, since you started that, you both have grown. You know, Emil as a sculptor, you as a storyteller and painter. Like, you know, as good as you guys were when the God's Fire series started, you're even better now. So it's just cool to kind of revisit some of those older characters and give them a little bit more life. Similar to what the Horsemen are doing with like the version 2s.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's always fun to revisit that.
Yeah.
You know, we imagine these as evil versions of the good guys, but then I was like, yeah, but it's really cool as just like a battle mid-battle version of the good guys too. So
so they're fun. Not just like, you know, standing around, like they're actually fighting and stuff.
Yeah.
And then here we've got now the one on the right here. This is a sculpt that you did, right? You sculpted that one.
Yes. Yep. That was a sculpt I did.
And then on this one, not only the head is painted, but the torso is a custom piece as well. So you've color matched the head and the torso to the arms and legs.
Yep. Head, torso is painted, and waist, but it's not matched, obviously. But yeah, so that's using all just stock arms and legs.
Gotcha. And then same thing kind of over here on the left with the skeleton. You've got that is the Wolf King skeletal torso that was out before we had the Legion Builder and Maxilius and all that. And then you've matched that to the arms there with it.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
And I believe those are the Deluxe Legion Builder skeleton colors.
Yeah, the one that's a little bit more yellowish.
Yep. Yep. So there's that, and then the one on the right is the original Barbarian Builder.
Yeah. And then got some more ogres here. Now this is with the Archimedes body. And yeah, I like how both of these came out. I think I prefer the one with the like brownish red beard. But both of these are super cool. And that I've tried to paint match this. This is not the easiest thing to paint match. Like this blue is kind of hard to get to. Any tips on that?
I struggled with this. I remember, and I found that it needed some orange.
Oh, okay.
Which is really weird. It sounds strange, but
I mean that's the opposite color on the color wheel, right? Like it's yeah. So you're basically desaturating it a little bit. Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
I think I started to do that, and I was kind of scared because apprehensive to put too much in, and and I think I got frustrated, and I was like, all right, we're just gonna go for it and put a big old glob of orange in it, and it seemed to get me close.
Yeah, it looks awesome. Like it totally matches the shoulders and stuff. Now you have a little bit of kind of give here because that beard separates the rest of the body from the head, so that gives you a little break in the color. And then also there's a little bit of that you know, the torso is a different color that kind of fades into it. So you have a little bit of give that if you started with a little bit lighter color or something, it would still work. But I think this is a perfect match for the shoulders there. So
yeah, if you look at the top of the head and then look at the shoulder, that's pretty close.
Hell, it's the same shape. It looks like it's a third shoulder. So here's another couple ones that you know that you've done here. That Hulk one, that was a commission for someone, right?
Yep, somebody sent me that body and that head and said, "Can you make this 3D printed head work with this body?" And that's what I did.
It's awesome. And that one, I think I remember you saying that like the hair piece came off on that, so that you
the hair is like two pieces. When it comes, it looks like he's bald because it's got the hair around the sides.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was That was a fun one, and it came out pretty good.
That to me, that looks like a very high-end factory paint job. Like that looks like something that you would expect to pay, $150 for, like the figure to come like this. I think the teeth are they immaculate. The teeth and the tongue, the eyes look great. Like the whole thing looks awesome. And then the fact that the green on the face matches perfectly to the bodies. It's just like it looks like it's meant to be that way.
Well, thank you.
And then over here on the left, we've got a Zazar body, which once again, not the easiest blue to match. I'm not sure what it is about blues. Maybe I just have trouble blue. I know I got more blues in my paint collection than most colors, but I still have problems with some of these. And this is a tough one in my opinion, but this looks great. I think you did a great job on that.
Yeah, I thought that I guess we'd gotten that blue and I hadn't done much with it, so it was fun to paint match it. And I mean, we'd gotten the figure, the character, the blue character, and so I thought, well, heck, that one head could kind of look like a genie head or I don't know, some kind of powerful thing. And
yeah, I like that you're take some of these sculpts, especially like this one is one of the ones that you sculpted yourself, and try to figure out different ways to use them so it's not just locked into one thing. That's neat. And should mention, like, you were probably one of the first ones that I talked to about using the So-Flat paints. I know Sherry recommended them like whatever it was, like 3 years ago or 4 years ago at G-Con, and a lot of people kind of stayed away from them because they don't, well, at least at the time, they didn't have a lot of colors. They've got a few more now, but it's still not, they don't have like 400 colors like some paint lines do. So when you get into it, it kind of forces you to do some paint matching and mixing and, creating your own colors, because there's not a lot of them that are just like you use it right out of the bottle and it's just going to be, what you need. So if somebody is getting into that, let's say they pick up So-Flat, they've never used a color wheel, they've not done any of this, any tips that you would have for those folks on, starting to mix paints?
Just do it. It's just paint. People are scared a lot of times to it's like, oh, it's like if you put some paint down on a palette or whatever and you start mixing and it doesn't work out and you never get there. I mean, how much money did you really waste right then?
Yeah.
You're never going to, it's like anything else. Until you start doing it, and looking at it and, being, I guess, visually honest is kind of a way I put at it. Sometimes I just have to take the color wheel right out of it and everything. And I just look at it and go, I want it to get here, looking at the color I'm trying to get to. And this is what I've got right now.
Yeah.
How do I get there? Is it orange that I need to put in there? Because sometimes it's not obvious,
Right.
Is it blue that I need to get there? What is it? Is it darker blue? And, so sometimes it'll be like, I only use probably 15 different colors for everything.
Wow.
That's all I have. I have, when I first got into painting, I went and I bought a huge starter kit of Army Painter paint, and it probably came with 50 or more paints, and I've bought a couple other ones since then that are just giant, and they're all sitting in a box. So I don't need them. It's just these few colors will get you, and is not metallics, taking metallics out of it,
right? But
these few colors will get you almost anywhere. I mean, I know that if I add like brown, the color brown is just three colors. It's the three main prime colors mixed together. You can get a brown with there. If you just mix that, you're gonna get a brown. It might not be the brown you want right then, but it's a brown. Right. If you need it lighter, add yellow to it. If you need it redder, add red to it. If you need it darker, add blue to it. And you could just keep playing until you get there.
Well, that's one of the things that I struggled on with early with browns, was a lot of the ones that I would get out of the bottle to me looked a lot way too red. And then I was like, okay, how do I get that red out of there? And nothing in my brain would have said add some green, right? But then, like, talk to a few other folks, and they're like, use the color wheel. And I pull this up, and I'm like, okay, it's too red. Opposite of red is green. I need to add a little green to my brown, and it would be like immediately, it's right where I need it to be. It's like I wouldn't have thought of that.
And if you think about it logically, you're not really adding green. You're adding blue and yellow.
Subtracting red. Yeah.
Yes,
right.
You're adding blue and yellow.
Right.
So, a lot of times I'll skip it. I'll see like, okay, well, show me the color wheel again. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Real quick. Let's say I'm dealing with red, okay? And you look across and it says to add green, just like you just said, right?
Yep.
Well, if I want it to be lighter, I could add yellow. If I want it to be a little darker, I could add blue. And if I just want to desaturate the whole thing, you add yellow and blue, which is green. Right. Or if you don't have green,
you can add them in even amounts, or you can add them in different amounts. So if you're, and I think that's part of what, and this is going to probably sound really stupid to you. And maybe there's some people out there though, that might go, yeah, I do that too. So like what I would initially do, if I had like this, let's say we're just using this example, this brown that's a little too red, right? And I would have a glob of it on my wet palette. And then I would go, okay, well, I need to add another color. I would just like put that color in the middle. I would just drop some in the middle of that and mix it up. Well, by doing that, I get one shot at it, right? Like I'll mix it up. And if that's not right, I'm screwed. And if it's too much, I'm doubly screwed, right? But what I've seen you do that I've picked up on is like you do like a couple drops on the side, and then you'll mix a little bit into the one. See, you'll mix it like in this example, if you're going to mix some yellow and blue, you would mix a little bit of yellow, mix a little bit of blue. You think it needs to be a little darker, you're going to mix a little bit more of the blue. And then once you get it to the color that you're looking for, then you use it. But, so it's like kind of putting those colors that you think you're going to need on your palette, and then mixing little piles here and there of what you think you're going to use. Right.
Yeah. And you can also influence things very quickly, because you're adding to small amounts of paint.
Yeah.
So if you've got a color that you want and you want to get somewhere else and you want to add a little bit of red to it just to see what happens, just affect a small portion of the paint and see if that's going to get you started in that right direction. Once you see that it is or it isn't, you can say, okay, that's not taking me where I want to go, or that is taking me where I want to go. Keep going.
Well, and if we go back to like the flesh tone ones, and I'll go to these ogre ones, like what I've seen you do when you're painting is you'll have like that Kislev in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. And then you'll have some brown, some red, some yellow, maybe some blue. Mm-hmm. And you start mixing these up. So you've got kind of like a blob of Kislev in the middle, but then you may have up here like a darker version of it. You may have over here a version that's a little bit more red. And so now as you're like putting these colors on as they're wet, you've got some areas that are lighter, some that are darker, some that are more red, but it's all got that same base to it. So it still all looks like it works together. It all blends and looks natural. You're not dealing with completely different colors, right?
Right. The mother color, as I call it.
I like that mother color.
Mother color's in the middle, and we're gonna paint the whole head that.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna have some reddish areas and some darker areas. You can see in these. So I like to do. If you look at the Triarch head, that's not just light hitting his cheeks. That's me using a lighter color on the tops of his cheeks. That fold along his nose. That's me hitting a lighter color in there too when it's still wet. So although it simulates how light's going to hit it, not to a drastic extent, but you're giving it just a little bit of help because light's going to hit it that way too. But you can see around the tops of his eyes how that's a completely different color around the eyes, because that's the part that gets shaded. The top of your eyes has shade and right under them, and then it's usually redder along the bottom of the eyes. And you can add all that stuff, but all of those are the children of the mother color. All of those, they're a little bit different, but they're not.
I like that a lot. The children of the mother color. That's good.
They're all mixed off from that main color that I matched to the neck peg.
Yeah. So I'm actually sending myself a picture right now to pull up. But yeah, I like that because you're giving yourself, a lot of flexibility in terms of which colors you're using, how much you're mixing. So you're not like, you don't get to a spot where you just add some stuff to it and then you've kind of messed up the formula and now you're screwed and you got to start over. Like, very rarely does that happen with the method that you're doing, because you're doing it in these smaller increments, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
All right, let me see here. Let me pull up this picture. Sorry, folks, I don't normally do this live, but I think this is worth it. So let me stop sharing this and let me pull this up real quick. So this is just a little snippet that I took from that video that I'm talking about over on I believe it's now the Wolf King Toys and Customs channel.
Mm-hmm.
But here you can see you've got kind of on the upper portion up here, you've got more like the regular Kislev. And then here you've got more of kind of the darker shaded.
Under the eyes, right there,
Yep.
where you just touched.
Yep. And then here you've got more of the reddish, more blush kind of tone.
In the folds of the skin, that's where that's going to go.
So you've got like all of these different colors here. And if you feel like you need to mix some more of it, you can just pull some more of that Kislev over, add some more of the brown, the yellow, the red. And then here, I'm guessing this is the same as it's just more red, right?
Yep, it's
Down
just more red. It looks like back then I was using Bugman's on the side. I don't do that rarely ever anymore.
I believe this was the Pro Acryl Shadow Flesh, if I remember.
Oh, maybe it was. Okay. Yeah. And I always have blue in my out there with it now, because if you're trying to do realistic painting, I found purple is a good color to have in the skin. If you're trying to do really realistic color, and you can get the purple tone from a little tiny bit of blue. Now, you don't usually see that too much in a factory Mythic Legions carrot figure.
Gotcha.
Okay, so if you're trying to do hyper real, then I use blue. Blue, I think, is going to help. If you look at a lot of the really great painters out there that do the really realistic, cool pieces that you walk by at a con and you're like, holy cow, that thing looks alive.
Yeah,
you'll notice it's a very pink purple usually tone. Mythic Legions tend to have a more orange tone to their skin. So it depends on the look you're going for. But what I do like to use that blue. It helps me get a good color for the lips, and it helps me get a good color for just under the eyes. A lot of red, a lot of purpley red and blue. And it's actually really good for 5 o'clock shadow if you're looking for that realistic. I don't know if we've ever
seen. That's what I was just going to ask you. I kind of know your answer, but for anybody that's trying to do 5 o'clock shadow, I know some folks have, either tried to like speckle stuff on there or tried different things and maybe try to create a new color from scratch, but you're really just taking the same base and just making it a little bit darker, right?
I'm putting a little blue into it and then watering it down. I thin it. Like, that's a wet palette. So it's going to get watered down anyways, but I'll even dip my brush into some water and even give it a little more translucency.
Yeah.
And put layers on, and it'll give you a good 5 o'clock shadow. Now depends on the style you're going for, because I don't think I've ever seen a Mythic Legions character come from the factory with a 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah.
Can you think of one? I
cannot.
So if you're trying to look like, this is better than factory, this is better than what comes out of Mythic Legions, that might be something you want to do to push yourself into that more realistic look. But if you're trying to mimic them, which is a lot what I try to do, it's not something you really want to use. I recently, I should have sent a picture of it. I recently did that with that Steve-O Baghead. I did that in our group chat. We have a group chat.
I actually have one that I think you have that's a pretty good example of it. We were going to get to it here a little bit later, but since we're talking about it, it is this one here with the G.I. Joe repaint, right?
Yeah.
because that's basically what you're talking about on that, right?
Yep, there's some 5 o'clock shadow, and I did a little bit on Wolverine over there too.
Yeah. So I just think that's really cool. And to clarify, when we say, you know, better than, we're not saying that, you know, nobody here is saying that they're better than the Four Horsemen. It's just they have a certain aesthetic that they're looking for, right? And this is the more hyper realistic aesthetic. So if that's what you're going for, you can definitely do that. You just got to make sure that it's going to fit in with what you're trying to do. So
exactly.
Yeah.
If that came off as me saying it's better, then
no,
not what I meant.
I knew what you were saying, but I'm just clarifying for folks out there. Like they do an amazing job, but they have a certain aesthetic that they're sticking to, right? Like that's their thing.
So far, yeah.
Yeah. So and you'll see some paint jobs where you're like, oh my goodness, that is like it looks like a real head. It looks like a real head that somebody painted. And depending on what you put it on, that may look great. Like if you throw it on an Armory Night, you're probably good to go. But if you throw it on something else, you know, you may kind of have it look a little off. So
yeah. And I want to say that before Wolverine head was not the figure I painted. I pulled that off the internet.
Gotcha.
Because I'd given that figure to it was a commission. I gave that figure to the person, and then I wanted to show a before and after. But so that isn't the same lighting. So the color match doesn't look it looks a lot more tan in mine than in red in the other one.
Gotcha.
It's closer than that in person.
Well, what I was trying to show in these, because I've got another slide too. And I know you and I have talked about this. Sometimes you get one of these figures from retail, right? Like you pick up like one of these GI Joes, like you pick it up from, you know, Target or Walmart or something, and it doesn't look right. Like I know on this the Flint, like a lot of people were complaining that like his head just looked weird, right? The face looked weird. And one thing that you've been adamant about is a lot of times it's not the sculpt. Like the sculpt is there. It's just not a great paint job. And so you can take these things and repaint them, and all of a sudden they just look completely different.
Yeah. I wanted to prove when I saw that Falcon from
Falcon, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. I knew what you meant. When I saw that Falcon, the pictures of that Falcon hit, everybody was like, "Ugh, it's disgusting," and I was like, "It's not as bad as it looks." So that was as soon as I got that, I opened it up and ran downstairs and painted it to try to see how I could improve it.
Well, and here's another one. The same thing I've heard about this Super 7 Conan head. Like, you know, it's just they don't put paint on it, right? Like they're sculpting it in that skin tone and then just leaving it like that. But when you look at it, the shape of the face, the details are there. It's just not, you know, it's not painted. So
yeah, it's actually pretty good for a 1/12 scale figure. It's not the best Conan ever, even after the repaint job, but it definitely, I think, is improved.
For sure. Absolutely. And then over here on the right, now this isn't a factory head, but this is a 3D printed head that you paint match to that body for the Cobra Commander. And I thought this one came out fantastic.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty cool Cobra Commander. I don't like it with the way it comes with the other head. I think that I don't like it, but once you put the hooded head on there, the paint match was definitely passable.
Passable. You're so humble.
So get used to it.
Yeah, let me just share one of mine so I can be humble with you. So this is one that I just did recently. And I talked about this on the channel, but like the Doomsday figure from McFarlane, like I looked at it and I would like analyze it and kind of look at the detail. I'm like, man, the details are so freaking good. Like they nailed the sculpt. They just, in most of the places, didn't apply any paint at all. Or if they did, it was just very lackluster. And so then you see my repaint on the right, and it's like, you know, you can tell, like, man, they did an amazing job on the sculpt. If they just would have added a little time to actually painting the details, like all of a sudden, this is a hugely, you know, awesome figure. So
yeah, it takes it to premium level.
Yeah. One of the best compliments I got on this one, was from Joe Vassapolo. He said, if McFarlane painted every figure like this and charged an extra $15, I would be in all day. So, and you know, I don't know. I don't know if just some of the companies don't realize that, like, if you just put some extra work into paint details, like, it will sell. But I definitely think Mythic Legions gets that, because everything that we get, you know, you don't get a lot of parts that are just, you know, molded in a certain color plastic and left like that. Like even the dragon, like we're getting ready to get this dragon that's absolutely huge, and every detail of it is painted. There's not any part of it that's left just, you know, they molded in a plastic and just left it that color.
It is seeing the parts of it, like, able to, not through glass, not from afar, but like even being able to hold that paw, the claw hand of the dragon, and seeing it like that, it's so next level. And you know how the colors pop and how the light hits it. It's just so fantastic.
It's beautiful. I did want to pull up. There's one more I've got here. So this is a troll one, which is another one that doesn't. It's not always the easiest to match, because you've got this like two completely different colors, right? You got like this gray color, and then you've got this more kind of, I don't know, I guess beige. I
Pinkish
don't know,
beige.
pinkish beige. Yeah. So you've got these two colors that are kind of blending together on the torso and on the arms, and you've extended that up into the head to where you see some of that lighter color on the, like the chin and the lower part of the face, into the darker color on top. This had to be a little bit more of a challenge, right? Not for Stevo. Lord Steven Bushotee nailed this.
I don't know. I will say that it went better and easier than I expected.
Okay. It looks great. I mean, it looks like this is a head that came on this figure, you know?
And that's what I was trying to pull off. I wanted to look like it belonged with the rest of the figure, and it could have come in the box. Could have come in a box from Four Horsemen. Yeah, this was cool. This is a sculpt that Emil did, and I don't think it was intended for a troll, but Len blew it up and made one, and sent it to me, and I'm like, interesting. I'm going to match that sucker, and I'm going to show it at a show, and then I'm going to give that head to Emil. So
that's awesome.
He has that in his head. I don't even think it's on a troll, or in his collection. I don't think it's on a troll. But
just on display by itself.
Just have the head.
That's awesome. Well, Steven, I really appreciate it. I think that was super insightful. You know, it reinforced some things with me. Hopefully some people picked up some tips on that. So yeah, I mean, I see there's, you know, Kickstarters out there for different paint lines where you get, you know, 500 colors and all this and that. And you don't need to spend, you know, hundreds and thousands of dollars on paints. You don't. You can get some basic paints and you know, mix and match and come up with the right colors. Now, there is something to be said for like the quality of paints, like the consistency stuff, but you don't need to buy a ton of them. You can make whatever color that is that you're looking for. You just got to practice. Try it in small segments, like we were saying, you know, have that mother color, right? And then have the other things around it that you're going to need, and, you know, kind of mix a little bit here and there, and see what you come up with, and get familiar with the color wheel. The color wheel is your friend. It's going to help you in terms of just coming up with complementary colors for actually doing a full custom. And it's definitely going to help with any of that desaturation type issues. So, any other tips for folks as far as if they're trying to get into this whole paint matching and mixing thing?
Just do it. It's like anything else. You can't learn to ride a bike if you don't get on a bike. So, I mean, yeah, some people are going to have more of an eye for it than others, but I don't think that really matters. If you keep trying, painting is all technique. It really is. I mean, some people might have steadier hands, but there's ways to work around not having steady hands. There's ways to work around a lot of stuff. If you just got to find your own way of getting there, and you're not going to do that without doing it.
Well, that brings up a good point. Is maybe we'll close out on this, because I remember talking to you a while back, and you had brought like a rack of heads to Legion's Con, and it was like all human heads, right? It was like a ton of human heads. And you go to a lot of these other booths and you see a lot of helmeted heads. And I think I had asked you about that. And what was your strategy for painting a bunch of human heads?
I wanted to be the best at it. I mean, I'm not saying I am the best, okay? But wanting to be the best will get you good. It'll get you really good at something, okay? You don't aim to try to be the best, then you definitely won't be. So it was something that I thought that if I could nail, I thought human heads, human skin tones, not just human. You're matching orc skin tones, you're matching all these other things, but matching that kind of realistic look, it's a lot more time consuming than, I'll just be honest. If you're gonna dry brush some armor, that's really a helmeted head. Just you do some dry brushing on it, you add some details. Here's a fact for folks that if it's not, this might be obvious, but for folks that buy painted heads, if you're looking at someone's rack and you're looking at a gunmetal painted helmet versus hair with depth, skin tone with different skin tones, eyes, all of that stuff. It's pretty common sense. People right away are like, eyes, I can't do eyes. You do eyes great. Okay. So that's the one that everybody recognizes as a talent, but I think even more so, eyes are a technique. You can learn them.
Yeah, I think eyes are definitely easier than skin tone. Getting skin tone right with the shadows and the crevices and the blush areas, like it, to me, that is the biggest, toughest thing. And I think that's what I loved about hearing that from you, was you're like, hey, this is the toughest thing. This is the thing that maybe people struggle with the most. So I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it. I'm just going to keep practicing at it until I get this thing down, until this is like second nature to me. And I think, there's something to be said for if you're out there and you're like, hey, this is my comfort zone, and I really like doing this, and it's nice and easy, and it doesn't stress me out. That's cool. But if you want to get better at something, and you're struggling, like this thing is not your forte, the only way you're going to get better is by doing it. Right.
You're going to get better. And getting back to the point I was trying to make is, if you walk up to someone's rack and they say, hey, everything's $40.
Yeah.
And just know, when you pick that human head or that orc head or whatever it is, that person spent way more time on that than they did the others, even though they're charging the same, because you can't pick and choose. You just can't.
Yeah.
And so
you don't see people going, well, this row of armored heads is 20 and this row of but but in fairness, like, you're setting your price point, because it's like, if I sell all of this is what I would be comfortable with. But some heads you're going to be taking more of a loss on than others. Right?
Well, some heads are show-off heads, to be honest. I'll get into a head and I'll be like, this head is turning out really good.
Yeah.
I'm going the extra mile, and I'm going to sell this for the same price I sell everything else.
Right.
So, you win, you lose. You win on, this other head maybe took me an hour. This one took me 2.
Yeah.
But
there's nobody in this
doesn't matter
that's getting rich off of this, right?
No,
if you break down how many hours that people are spending on this stuff, maybe a meal might be getting rich.
Meals, yeah, he's getting. I hear he's on the Fortune 500 list.
But
just
other than
customizing heads.
Yeah, if somebody's charging, let's say, $50 for painted heads, if it's a good head that they've spent hours on, they're not really making. When you think about the cost of the piece itself, the amount of time that they're putting in it, the supplies, the amount of time that they've spent to hone their craft. Nobody's getting rich off of this stuff. So do it because you love it. So
yeah, do it because you love it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Steven, I really appreciate it. I think this was, like I said, it reinforced some things for me. I think hopefully it was insightful for others. Folks, if you watch this and it inspires you, you go out and do one of these paint jobs. Make sure you tag Steven, tag myself. Let us know that this helped you out. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comment section. If it's something I can answer, I definitely will. If it's not, I will get Steve involved. And remember, I will throw the the link to that other video that Steven did in the description of this, so that you can watch that as well. And in that one, he kind of walks you through an entire painted head, talking about all the stuff that we discussed today. So, Steven, anything else to add before we close it out?
Nope. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Absolutely. All right. I'm going to put you backstage. If you got to run, totally understand. If not, hang out and I will be right back with you. All right, folks, another how they do that in the books. This was a fun one. There's some folks in the community that I've learned a lot from. They've shared knowledge, and I think the person that I've learned the most from in this community is Steven. I think that just the way that he goes about creating these colors and blending them and doing the things while you're painting is something I've definitely tried to bring into my own work. And I was not an art kid. Like I didn't take art classes. I didn't know a color wheel. I didn't know what a color wheel was for. So this is all still relatively new to me. But Steven does a great job. I would highly encourage you guys, if you show up at a con, whether it's one of the ones up in Michigan. I was just at MesquiCon recently, and man, he had some great stuff there. And if you showed up at Legions Con, once again, just stop by his table. I know Steven isn't the guy that gets as much attention in, like, let's say the Cabal and stuff as far as his paint jobs, but when you see it firsthand, that you're looking at quality shit. So sorry for cursing there, but I'm telling you, he's good. So check it out, get something from him. You're not going to regret it. And until next time, folks, keep creating.